thought I would bring my next video outside because it's so beautiful today, making the most of the New Jersey summer. It reminds me that meditation teaches us that we have the opportunity to start again. Every new day is an opportunity to start again. Every hour is an opportunity to start again. Every minute, every new year, and every breath ultimately is an opportunity to start again. So, in these conversations, we're talking about these identifiable patterns. And if they don't feel good, then it's a nice reminder that we always have an opportunity to just start again, to reset. I guess the question is, how can we reset? So to that, there were two things that I wanted to illuminate from the client session that I had talked about in the last video. And the first thing is that when my client has these reactions, right? So remembering that the mind took stock of a situation, made it wrong, the resulting emotional reaction was rage, and then that gets depleted, and then it results in shame and blame and guilt, and then ultimately it revalidates unlovability, unworthiness, and so on, because that's essentially the MO of the victim. So what happens with that is that it can trigger an IBS episode. The Eastern arts teach us that where our mind goes, where our attention goes, energy flows, and where our energy flows, our biology goes. And so what we see in my client is that when his mind goes into a direction where he's disconnecting from peace, when he's disconnecting from the unconditional loving support that's here in any given moment, when he's seeing through the eyes of judgment and not through the eyes of God, that results in this emotional response, right? In his case, and in the example that I had given in the last video, was rage. And then, so not only does that hijack his emotional piece, but then it has this incredible impact on his biology, where he ends up having this debilitating IBS episode, which can take a few days to recover from. And so as somebody who cares about him and really wants to illuminate this pattern so that he can make a different choice, I can see how, if we go back to, the very beginning, where he enters the room, the very beginning of the scenario, just leading up to it, the start of his day even, where all of that is avoidable. The judgment is avoidable. The ensuing rage, the guilt and the shame, the whole IBS episode, all of that's avoidable. But it's important because it's an important conversation, because we can see how powerful these archetypal energies are, how powerful these archetypal energies worldview is. And so, yeah, so it's important for us to have this conversation and to highlight these patterns, but also to realize that it doesn't have to be this way. There is another way of entering into a room. There are other worldviews that we can adopt that lead to peace, that bring more love into a situation, that help us be the embodiment of service. So I wanted to highlight that. I just wanted to highlight that these archetypal energies have the power to move matter. They have the power to make us sick and tired. That's how powerful they are. So I wanted to highlight that. And the second thing I wanted to highlight was that kind of part of the solution, which is essentially what this video is about, that he does have the strength, and he does have the self-mastery to make amends. That's available to him. He is practiced in that. He's done enough self-work at this point to then be able to, once it's worn itself out, once it's over, because it's unsustainable, he is then able to return to that, the scene of the crime. He's able to return to the scene of the crime. He's able to seek the people out who, were at the brunt of his self-deception, honestly, his illusion, and then he's able to apologize. So to that, I wanted to, in this video, outline, if you're on the other side of the victim's patterns, the victim's behaviors, and it's hurting, there is a way to have a mindful, respectful, gentle, yet illuminating conversation. And so I'm going to just kind of like lay out the recipe for it. But before I go into it, I do want to preface that you will need to prepare for this conversation. You will need to take a moment, even perhaps enroll a friend to help you prepare. The first step is to make a note, to write down, to make a list of what you've noticed. Make a list of the facts. So for example, let's say your lovable victim, so your lovable victim is going to have done something that you don't like, you don't want, and perhaps didn't expect. Or maybe you did expect it, because that's the pattern. But regardless, you don't like it, you don't want it, it doesn't feel good, and you feel stuck in the pattern, you feel infuriated, you feel powerless, you feel frustrated. Maybe you feel enraged, right? Because victims create more victims. So the first step is to note down the facts. This is what you've noticed. This is what happens. The second step is to flesh out how that feels. What happens inside of you? What happens in your thinking? What do you notice? It makes you want to withdraw from them. How it feels in your biology. It creates stress in your biology. So really note down how it makes you feel. And then the third step is to kind of serve it back to them and say, okay, well, given everything that I've shared, right, given the facts of the situation, this is what happened. I'm sharing with you how this makes me feel, given everything that I've shared. So because we love each other, because I love you with my whole heart, and, ideally we get along, ideally we treat each other with respect, that we abide by the golden rule. So what would you do? What would you do if you were me? Given everything that I've shared, what would you do if you were me? And when you pose this question, you are preparing yourself to expect an answer, to be still, to wait, to not jump in, but prepare yourself to sit back and wait for an answer, because you're coming into this really wanting to know. You're not going into this to be right, and that's the nuance. You're going into this to really to find peace, to find a common ground through the holy light of truth, through the holy light of love. You're not coming into this to manipulate. You're really looking. You're really looking for peace, and you're really wanting to find that peace, so that you can spare not only yourself, but you can spare them from this pattern, not only for your relationship now, but for future relationships, right? So, part of our responsibility, if we're listening to videos like this, is to, illuminate our brothers and sisters to the truth. So the next step, after you've heard them share, and they might not share well, so you really are bringing in some patience and curiosity, but you give them the space to be able to share. And then the next step is, the step number 4 is to share with them, to paint the picture of how you would have liked it to have gone, what you would have liked for it to have been done differently. So again, you can see how it's important to prepare, right? So you really want to paint the picture, describe in detail, even giving them language for how you would have liked it to have gone, how it could have gone in such a way where you would have been happy and at peace. And then the final step number 5, is then sharing, painting the picture of how you would like it to go in the future. Okay, so this happened, and it was important. It didn't feel good in the moment, but it had an important purpose. And part of the important purpose was that we're having this conversation, and it's important because we love each other and we want to make the most of our relationship. We want to grow in the context of this relationship. We want to be loving. We want to be considerate and respectful and kind. We want to live the golden rule. So paint the picture of how you would like it to go in the future, how you would like to see it going forward. And then after a few days have passed, you can always check in with your lovable victim and just, ask them, have any more thoughts or feelings arisen since the conversation that you had a couple of days ago? Is there anything else that they would like to add? And perhaps you have something that you would like to add, maybe, in a quiet moment, something, a new inspired thought, a loving thought arose that you want to share. So feel free to let the conversation be a continuous conversation, because love is continuous. Love flows, and we want to embody the grace, and we want to be that channel, that source of unconditional love moment to moment. That's where we do have the power. That's really what we're here for. Yeah, I say this all the time, that it's easy to be kind and good and considerate and generous when everything's going swell, but how well do we do when things aren't going so well? So yeah, just see it as an ongoing conversation, and that your intention is to connect, is to learn, to respect, to love, and to find mutual peace in the context of the relationship. And this really is what we could call a holy relationship. So feel free to share in the comments below, and please subscribe as I continue to make videos exploring the different archetypes that influence our lives.